hope you're well. What you're about to see is one of the Jester videos from a while back. This is in response to a comment that I got yesterday on my Substack about understanding about Section 28, and I thought it was about time that I put this back up. The Warrior Teacher Programme, Winning Mindset, which we've got starting in September, do come and join us. It's very much about building narratives. So what you're getting here is a taste of mine. And I think you may find it interesting because it encompasses Section 28 and all sorts of other things about how we got where we are. It's been a while since it was seen, and I don't think it got the viewing it deserved, but then I would say that, wouldn't I? I hope that you find it interesting in light of the kind of nonsense we've seen at Manchester Pride and the kind of rubbish being spread around by trans rights activists, that there is far more to this than most people understand. And I hope that this narrative, steeped, as every good narrative should be by warrior teachers, in the past and bringing us right back to the current, may be something that you'll find worth understanding. Thank you all for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Do come and be a warrior teacher. We have such fun, as well as learning together. Bye-bye. Beep, 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 Jester. Ha! Okay, look. I see that the hideous prospect of drag queen story time has raised its head once more in the press and in, the Twitteroids. People are going crackers over it and doing the thing and doing the do. So I thought it was about time we gave all this crap some context. Ooh, look at that. So let's do it. I mean, I got up and read today. You're getting a double dose today. I think I've already put a video out. You're getting a double dose today, but that's okay because there isn't going to be one for a couple of days. Lots to do. New team on the Warrior Teacher Programme. Very excited. So, okay, so let's see what's happening at the epicenter of all this, because it involves a guy called Sab Samuel, who I've mentioned to you before a few times, I think, when I did my series of 3 videos on drag queen storytime about 6 months ago, when the same furore began to erupt. And so we've got an article in the Telegraph, and I believe he appeared on Talk TV with that ridiculous woman that used to set up people to be cruel to each other years ago. Trisha Goddard, is that her name? Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's what happened effectively yesterday. And meanwhile, the cover of his book is floating around, and they found a symbol on it. So did I. This is a symbol for pie, and people are going, pie, pedophiles. Right. Okay. So the symbol for pie. Pi is what's called a transcendental number, which means it's infinite. It just keeps going. What they're talking about really is polyamory and the idea of infinite sexes. Believe me, they're not that stupid in regards to blatantly put that on there, and they wouldn't get the connection anyway. If they got the connection, you wouldn't be saying the things he's saying on TV. So let's just have a quick look and see what's been said about it, and then I want to go back to something else. Let's see how long we got with this. If it ends, I'll put another one up. But it will just cut me off. It does it for some reason. I can't work out why yet. But anyway, so he was on TV, and he said essentially that he was a catalyst. He said his readings can act as a catalyst for children to begin living their true selves. Right. Language like true selves, lived experience, that sort of stuff is the language of the cult. It's the language of gender identity, ideology, and queer theory. When they say it'll be a catalyst for children to begin living their true selves, the main factor of this is, of course, that Sab is himself still a child in terms of educational perspectives. He's not grown up at all, ever. So he's still a child. He doesn't get it all. So he said that that's what he is. He's a catalyst for children to begin living their true selves and save them from the horrendous mental health battle he went through while growing up. Well, it looks to me like Sab's probably in his late 20s, at most in his early 30s, which means that he would have become cognizant of who he was when he was young, probably. And let's give him 12, right? Because I was about the same age when I found out that I was a shirt-lifting woofter, right? So about 12, in which case that was 18 years ago. And is it me, or was Section 28 repealed 20 years ago? Funny that, isn't it? I was a victim of Section 20. No, you weren't. If I got it wrong, tell me. But you weren't anyway. Section 28 didn't work like that. We'll come to Section 28. So he's living his true self is a horrendous mental health battle. Dear God, these horrendous mental health battle. What are you talking about? This is just after Queer as Folk. Gay people were being portrayed positively on television programmes such as Prime Suspect. It was homophobes that were being portrayed badly at the time. Right? The Birdcage? Anyone? It's just insane that they're talking in this way. He is a role model for people who had a terrible, horrendous mental health battle. So he wants to get hold of children so that can, he can show children that you don't have to be like that. Drag Queen Story Hour will show you to be your true self. So in order to be your true self, all you have to do is to pretend to be something you're not. I'll put money that Sam Samuel doesn't think he's a woman. He's got no intention of thinking he's a woman. This has nothing to do with that, right? Because he's just a drag queen. He's just a bloke in a dress doing things, right? That's what he thinks he is. He's not, of course, he's a pawn. Because he doesn't get it. I'm convinced of it. He doesn't know. He's never spoken to anybody who actually deeply knows these subjects, and nor will he, right? So he's had children come up to him and say, how do I tell my parents? How do I come out? Has he? Where? What, 5-year-olds? Because from what I can see, who'd go to a story time? Who would go to a story time who is old enough to go, I'm gay, how do I tell my parents? This might have happened to him elsewhere. It certainly happened to other people. I'm gay, how do I tell my parents? If I was told that gay was a good word and gay is fine, I wouldn't have gone through the horrendous mental health battle. Look, people like you, Sab, are holding up an ideology that's got nothing to do with being gay. Gay's a bad word, remember? Homosexuals, remember? Same-sex attracted, not according to Stonewall. This whole thing is confusing. Honest to God, folks, I don't think he knows. I don't think he knows. I think he just hasn't ever sat down and spoken to an old, bugger like me, or Kavanaugh, or Simpson, or any of the old shirtlifters fanning around in this fight, right? He's never done it. He's never sat down, had some lunch and gone, right, tell me the truth, tell me the story. Let me know what happened. Let me know what it was really like when it wasn't a matter of fact that you were gay in school but couldn't say anything. It was the fact that you were gay in school and you were hunted for it. He added, then he said, I didn't have a single LGBTQ plus role model. Like, he can't help himself, see? So 1 minute he's talking about being gay, then he talks about being LGBTQ. What he's doing here is what's called a Mott and Bailey. But he doesn't know he's doing it. So, I looked up to powerful women like Madonna and Lady Gaga. Did you know? Madonna and Lady Gaga. Well, yeah. I did Barbara Streisand and, Most gay men, though, did Doctor Who, my age. That's why older gay men have a thing with Doctor Who, because he was the only asexual character on television. A lot of gay men like Doctor Who that were my age, because he was asexual. That's why when he kissed that woman in the movie, we all went bloody bonkers. And that's why when they had to fanny around with it, with their wokeness, they spoilt it. Because they forgot that many of their viewers were older men who'd been watching for years, because actually John Pertwee and Tom Baker were the only men who were asexual on television at the time. And therefore, their sexuality was indeterminate. Don't ever think about that, does he see? Because he can't go back in time. They can't do that the young now. They can't. Right. And then he says, so he's talking about LGBT. 1 minute it's, I've got mental health problems because I'm gay. Next minute it's, I didn't have a single LGBTQ role model. Like every gay man out there. I didn't have a single LGBTQ role model like every gay man out there. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. And this is the nonsense of representation. Doesn't have to be gay. Tom Baker wasn't gay. John Pertwee wasn't gay. What is he saying? That his role model was Madonna and Lady Gaga because they were gay? So he wants a role model that's gay, but then he picks Madonna and Lady Gaga. This is a very confused person. Very confused. One does not understand. What's going on? Okay? Why are they surprised that we are now sat here embracing femininity with drag? Drag's got nothing to do with femininity. Drag has nothing to do with femininity, you idiot! Unless, of course, you're talking about American drag, RuPaul, which I think he might be. Nothing to do with femininity. And everything to do with go on, but you think we're like women? Have this. You don't get it. It was a reaction to being accused of being women. Your big girl's blouse, as they would say. It's extraordinary. So then we have a situation where he went to the Tate. What the Tate playing at? Stop it. Right? The problem isn't that he's gay. The problem that is that he's a tool for queer theorists and gender ideologists. And not only that, he's also a tool for critical race theory. Because lo and behold, who turned up? A bunch of critical race theorists to protest when he was there at the Tate. To protest so that he could speak. He's a tool. He's either a tool in that he's being used by other people, or he's just a tool because he's an idiot. Seb, you need to sit down and talk with somebody who's older. You know, you need to sit down, you need to talk and find out exactly what it is that you're bloody well playing with. But I don't think he knows. I think he's ignorant of it. I watched him on Talk TV and he's bleating away like some kid that's got the candy. There was nothing serious in the interview. Trisha Goddard was a gibbering mess. Oh, did it? The whole thing's bloody odd, right? Then who else turns up at the Tate? Some, right-wing nutters. So they've now got left-wing and right-wing nutters having a scrap. While the rest of us are going in the middle going, yep, we'll talk about this. It's just insane. So the media jump on that and then all of a sudden everything becomes about that. And they're all looking for dark, conspiracies about this, stupid man who goes around with a, bag with wheels on it filled with sequin crap. Honest to God, right? So anyway, I just want to say about that because it sort of gives us an in to the next bit. The main thing that I'm noticing about all this is absolutely bloody historic. I was a victim of Section 28, said Sab Samuel. Were you now? 20 years ago we repealed it. He doesn't know anything about it. He doesn't know the first thing about Section 28. Because 20 years ago he'd have been 10-ish. What? Let's talk about Section 28. And to do that, we have to go back in time. So let's go back in time a little bit. Let's have a quick flight of fancy. A flight of fancy, as one would say. Oscar Wilde used to love his fellow man, didn't you, Oscar, our dear boy? Oh yes. One may be lying in the gutter, but I'm looking at the stars. All that stuff. The Reading jail and his apology to Bosie, and the Marquess of Queensberry being an absolute bugger. I don't mean really. I mean metaphorically. When in fact he then accused Oscar of being a bugger, and they blackmailed one of the politicians and ended up with a law that criminalised gay men and stayed on the books for 100 years because it was attached to a law that raised the age of consent so that it appeased the left and the liberals. So. Gosh, gay men as a political football, imagine. And then so, Oscar did that, and the next thing you know, we're into the Second World War. Franz Ferdinand is assassinated, and we're into the Second World War. The Great War, the First War. The one that came on the back of the Industrial Revolution, which meant that we had mechanisation that could kill people en masse for the first time. The war to end all wars, that's what they called it. Didn't know, did it? So you end up with a situation between the wars, and then you go between the wars, and it just sort of tiddles along from 1918 for another 20 or so years until eventually we end up with Hitler at the head of Germany and bringing down the Weimar Republic, and off the men went again, including my grandfather who died in the war, and my family who were evacuated. To fight evil, because Nazism was evil. We didn't know it at the time, not at the time, but that started nice, support the National Socialists. Yeah, okay, give them a few bob. And off they went. And that, we know what that led to: the eradication of Jewish people in the Holocaust, the Shoah, and of course the persecution of others who didn't fit the idea of what the state thought they should be. Well, that was 1945. I was born in 1964. These people need to get some sense of temporality. 19 years. 19 years. Right? 19 years ago was 2002. Wow. A society still scarred by the Second World War, and a people, a humanity in many ways cowed by the realisation of the horrors that had been committed by Nazi Germany in the name of National Socialism. What was it like then? You wouldn't remember. Very few people alive who would. But I remember my friend who I knew telling me about the horrors of Auschwitz. and how he was forced to walk for miles and miles and miles. He wouldn't tell me much else. It was only really skirting over the issue. There was very little he would tell me. But he was Polish, great big guy. But he only ever sat up in a chair because he was terrified if he lied down, he wouldn't be able to get up quick enough if they came for him again. These kids don't know anything about their history. They haven't been taught about it. I was watching Judgment at Nuremberg the other week with a couple of younglings, and that incredible scene where they show the camps being liberated and the piles of bodies and the tractors and all the horror that comes with it. And I said to one of them, "It doesn't get old, does it?" And he said, "I haven't seen it before. I haven't seen it before." I said in a video the other day that we're not frightening our children enough, and we're not. You need to scare your kids. Scare the shit out of them. Let's stop messing about. This be kind, protect this, protect that nonsense has to stop. It's gone too far. Because the be kind, protect this, oh my gosh, what a little special flower you are, is what gave us Seb Samuel. And the other twats playing pianos with their penis. They're nicey, you know, stuff has got to stop. That's the toxicity of femininity, if you want. I don't know. So we hadn't really recovered in the 1950s from the Second World War. There was rationing was still on. But we proclaimed a new world. You know, the NHS and a safety net for social security, and women had a taste of what it meant to work. And then along came the feminist movement in the 60s and blew the lid off everything, particularly in America. Whereas over here it was done in different ways. You know, in different ways we weren't quite the same. And then before you know it, the clarion cry came, it's time to decriminalise homosexuality. And that came off the back of a film called Victim, and which is about blackmailing gay men. It's a very good film, it's worth watching, it's on iPlayer. And that was something that Churchill couldn't stand. He couldn't stand the fact that people would be treated differently. He wanted people to be treated by the state with respect. So he commissioned Churchill, by the way. Just so you know, it wasn't the left. Okay? So he commissioned a report called the Wolfenden Report, which was designed to look at homosexuality. And you have to understand that the British public knew nothing about it. Nothing. We were treated as if we literally were an other. Seb has no idea. From 1957 until 1967, which is eventually when they repealed the law. God, gay men were on tenterhooks, right? And then they repealed it, but you had to be 21, nobody else had to be in the house, and there was loads of rules that went around it, because unfortunately what happened in between 57 and 67 meant that it was never going to be that easy. So we had a situation whereby we'd come through the Second World War, traumatised as a nation, traumatised with many things. And then after the Second World War, we moved towards the point where we could discuss the decriminalisation of homosexuality, and then the decriminalisation of homosexuality was taken up by, let's be clear here, Margaret Thatcher, who was involved in the decriminalisation in terms of being for it. Leo Abbs, the Liberal Party, and the left weren't. They were against it. Led by Harold Wilson. The left didn't want to know. The lies you've been told, see? Go fact check me. The lies you've been told. And then in 1963, something happened that had not happened in Britain before, and certainly not a Britain that had the connected nature of the media, television, national television. And that was the murder of a number of children by a couple called Hindley and Brady, Myra Hindley and Ian Brady, in what became one of the worst crimes of the century, and was, by anyone's chalk, a horrific example of the very worst that humanity had to offer. They'd recorded the murders, and they found the tapes and played them in court. And what was even worse about it was, one of them was a woman who was an active participant. That shook everybody to the core. Not least of all because 2 weeks before they were found guilty, they'd abolished hanging. The public went nuts. Absolutely nuts. And they remain, both of them, figures of horror and terror right up to this very day. They still do. Remain figures of horror and terror. And the suffering that the families went through was something that, really because of the nature of the fact that we now had national television and people could understand about what had happened, sent a ripple through the country like you wouldn't believe. And also the fact that they did it to both boys and girls. I wish that wasn't true. But that a woman and a man sexually assaulted and brutally murdered boys and girls. That's the whole circle of depravity right there. That was 1960s, 1963, 64. What else happened? Seismic, see? JFK was assassinated. Martin Luther King, JFK, the idea of the liberal moving forward, let's get people together, let's get together, work together, let's have equality. There was earth-shattering events in the 60s and 70s. Nixon was kicked out of Watergate in 72. And in Britain, there we are, we just managed to get rid of hanging, and we've got two people who, if ever the need for hanging was wanted, that would have been the need for it then, and people were fuming. People were fuming. Fuming that Brady had sexually assaulted boys and girls, and Hindley had helped him do it, and then helped him kill them and helped cover it up. But yet, in 1967, we managed to get an easing up of the regulations against gay men. Still wasn't that simple. It still wasn't that simple, because shortly after that, we then began the rise of Pi. Just a few more years after that, we have the rise of Pi, the Paedophile Information Exchange, who, like the QT today, attaches itself for political means to the gay movement. And Pi, the Paedophile Information Exchange, were about legalising sex with children. There's no getting away from it. Labour Party met with them. Liberty supported them. The left, right? Liberty supported them. So when it came to decriminalising, any wonder that the government at the time had to tread carefully. They couldn't go, yeah, right, go on, yeah, we're all the same. They tread carefully. They treaded carefully. They had to. They had no choice. They had no choice. Hindley, Ian Brady, a country traumatised by war, and then into the 70s, Pi suddenly appear. And they managed to get involved with all sorts of things. I mean, they went to Parliament, for God's sake. Right? Went to Parliament. The nutty left. Again, the nutty left. Right? And then what do they decide next? Oh, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go into school and tell your kids it's okay to be gay. It wasn't that they were wrong to do that, because that had nothing to do with Pi, but in the public's mind, you couldn't separate the two out. You couldn't separate the two out, because we spent the next 25 years telling people, and we've got there, that, it's got nothing to do with us. But you couldn't separate the two out. Section 28 was not a proactive attempt to hurt gay people. It was a reactive attempt to protect them from the excesses of the lunatic left. Do you seriously think, in a country where all the things that I've just laid out for you had happened, that Margaret Thatcher could have gone bang with a magic wand and got everybody to be equal? She was the one who voted to decriminalise. You understand this? She couldn't have done that, okay? What she did do was appease the right, so that we didn't end up being dragged back into criminality. The simplistic notions of Section 28 that are being pushed by the TQ nutters are damaging us. Section 28 had nothing to do with being gay and everything to do with the lunatic left. Everything to do with the lunatic left. It was never used. Never. It was never used. Ever. Nobody was ever prosecuted. Very, very few people discussed it. It affected very little. This idea that people were emptying libraries is nonsense. It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. An absolute lie. I was there. It's an absolute lie. All right? And you seriously think that saying to teachers and councils you can't promote homosexuality as better than heterosexuality? Gosh, what a surprise. You can't do what they're doing now, which is form hierarchies of oppression. It's the same damn thing. Section 28. I was traumatised by Section 20. No, you weren't. Right? Okay, not least of which, because you didn't spend your entire life stuck in a classroom, and everybody, post-1999 as queer as folk, was talking about what gay was. You're a liar, Sam Samuel. It's a mental cage of your own making. This is crap they're spouting, right? Don't listen to them. Section 28, never used. Nobody has ever prosecuted. And you don't think that teachers, that the left in schools, didn't go to the kids, listen, you might be gay. Don't tell anybody else I told you that. Of course they did. Of course they did, right? Or that the left in schools, the liberals in the schools, we've had liberals in schools for the last 60 years, weren't, making sure that kids go and talk to so-and-so. And the fact that the kids spend much more time of their life outside school than inside school, you don't think that they had people they could talk to about being gay? I came up here to Canal Street in God knows what, 2000, 2001 or whatever it was. There was hundreds of us. Thousands of us. There was an influx after Queer as Folk. That's where we all went. That was 22 years ago. Sab was 8. You seriously think, Mr. Samuels, that your experience is the same as mine? It's not that everything's relative, because it is. It might feel like that to you. It's because you won't reach out and find out whether or not you're being hyperbolic in your own assessment of yourself. When you are being hyperbolic in your own assessment of yourself. From Oscar Wilde to the First World War, to the Second World War, to the Holocaust and the Holodomor, through the Holocaust and the Holodomor to the 1960s and the revolution, the sexual revolution and the liberation of women and of black people in the States and America and over here, to the Moors murderers, to Pi in the 70s and the 80s, to the video nasties panic. It's all connected. It's all connected. Section 28 was not an aggressive attack. It was a response to the lunatic left, who have never, and probably never will, understood statehood. The lunatic left, right? You've got to get this right, and you've got to understand that this idea of Section 28 is something that, they can bandy. Well, I survived Section 28. How dare you? It's never used. You didn't survive anything. Christ on a bike. So, the LGBTQIAP+, they make them victims. Seb's a victim. He's accepted the idea that he's a victim. I'm a victim, but that's not his fault. He's too young for it to be his fault. What is his fault is that he continues to do it despite people are telling him, hang on a minute, kid, probably not a good idea. That's his fault. His current ignorance is his fault, because he knows. He knows. Anyway, Section 28, not what you thought it was. It never ever was what you thought it was, and it certainly is not even vaguely comparable to the history of men who fought from 1957, right through to 2000 when we got an equal age of consent. Nothing to do with it. The T and the Q has nothing to do with being gay. It's nothing to do with Section 28, and they will have nothing to do with the future of gay people. I can tell you that now. Tell the stories, folks. These people need to understand. Right? These people need to understand. Go well.